In this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use very basic, simple methods to get relatively good results with sculpting in Blender. You can see this lineup here is actually some real examples from the tutorial you're about to watch. We're going to start by placing some primitive shapes like a sphere, a cylinder, and some cubes that we're just going to roughly manipulate. And that's very, very simple to do. And then I'm going to show you how to turn that all into one mesh. And then we're going to sculpt some basic features and we're going to work our way up to this result over here. So this is a really fun tutorial and it's going to help you as a beginner understand some nice tips and tricks to kind of get the rough blocking done and kind of progressively work your way to the details. A very common mistake that beginners make is that they want to start, they just extrude a cylinder as a neck, they put a little sphere on it and they start making a nose or eyes immediately, detailing way too early. So by working with this progressive method where we start with a rough shape and work our way up the details, it's really going to help simplify the process. So in the description below there will be some free resources as well, like on my Gumroad page we're going to be using a starter file, and I'm also going to be including a file that contains some ears, and I'll explain why in the video, you'll see. But just keep watching, and I will be putting the final result here on my Patreon as well. But yeah, hopefully this can take you from a beginner to a bit more of a professional sculptor. And as always, it's going to come down to practice, looking at reference material, and just trying. Don't get discouraged if your result doesn't look like this right away. It just takes a bit of time, a bit of practice. And I will also mention I'm going to be using a mouse for this tutorial, not a graphics tablet. Even though I do have one, I actually just prefer to sculpt with the mouse because before I could afford a graphics tablet, that's what I use. So let's jump into this tutorial, and I really hope you guys are able to make this result here, which is what we're going to be doing today. Now here are the resources that I mentioned. Before we get started, you can download this. You can look in the description below. It's on my Gumroad page and it is free. You can just type in 0 here. If you chose to donate to help out a channel, that'll be really appreciated, but that's completely up to you. You can go ahead and download this. And inside there is a setup for placing our primitive shapes. So it's just a starter blend file. And it's also an ear, and you're going to see why we have the ear model. It's part of my workflow, and I'll actually include a link as well in the description to where you can learn how to sculpt step by step the whole ear in Blender. But it's a very specific reason I've got it in there, and you'll see as we progress. But go ahead in the description below, just download it. It's free if you want it, and yeah, let's jump right into it. Okay, so we're going to start off in our front orthographic view. So this is the front view where we only have half of our example drawing here, and the only reason we have half over here and not half on the right orthographic is because this is non-symmetrical on the y-axis, but at the front view this is a symmetrical plane here, the x-axis. So only having half of the image here is all we need, because it's going to automatically symmetrize over to the other side. So let's start by going Shift A, and we're going to go to our mesh options, and the first primitive shape we're adding in is a UV sphere. We're going to go G, Z, and move that up till it's roughly where this circular part of the head is, and we're going to press free to go into our right orthographic view, and we're going to go G and move that forward. And we're placing it right about here. You can see, very simple. Now over here it bulges out a little bit, so we'll just tab into edit mode. And what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift Alt and just left click on this edge to loop selected. Enable the proportional editing here, and then just go S, X, and just scale on the X. You can roll your middle mouse button. That'll increase or decrease the fall off. So we're just going SX and just bringing it a little bit in on the X like that. Very, very simple. Let's turn that off, tab back out, and in our right orthographic view, let's go Shift A, let's add in a cube. We're going to take this cube and move it up to where the square shape is, and we're just going to rotate it almost at 45. We can go S to scale it down, and you can just press G to move it as well, and just place it to roughly where that square is. Then go into the front orthographic view, and then go S, X, and scale it on the X, make it a little bit skinnier, something like that. Doesn't have to be 100%, just more or less a little bit skinnier. And to be efficient, let's reuse this. We're going to go Shift D in our right orthographic view, duplicate this, right click, and then S to scale. Let's just bring it here to kind of make the shape over here. Once again, we're keeping this really basic. We're going to tab into edit mode. Let's enable X-ray up here. Let's click and drag, select these verts. We're still in our right orthographic view, bring them in. and then go to our front orthographic view, press A to select everything, and then S, X, and scale it on the X till it's nice and wide like this. Then select these bottom verts and go S, X, and scale them on the X. And then we're going to simply come in here, hover over this edge with your cursor, then simply go Control R or Command R. And you're going to see that's the shortcut for the edge tool. We're adding in an edge. See that yellow line? Just left click twice once you see it, and now it's added in. Go into your front orthographic view, S, X, and scale it on the X till it kind of makes the jaw here a little bit wider. Okay, now you can see here it's going forward in the nose a little bit too much. Let's just, in our right view, simply grab these two verts to the front, very simple, and move them back a little bit like this. Not too much, okay? You can see on the example here, we have kind of this curve here on the nose. This is the nose here, but here's where the face starts flattening out. And we do have the cheekbone up here, so we do kind of want this here. It'll be very handy, but we want to bring that in a little bit, but don't worry too much if there's some square bits sticking out, okay? We're just going to go S, X, and just scale it on the X just a little bit. Okay, we're going to turn off that X-ray. It'll make things a little bit simpler, and that looks fine. Okay, that's all we need. Don't worry about all those square bits. We're just trying to get a rough shape here. Let's tab back out now, and let's get another primitive. We're going to go Shift A. Let's add in a cylinder, and this one is really simple. We're just going to go S to scale it, G to move it up, and this is super easy. R to rotate it, and this is so easy. I mean, I hardly have to explain to you guys what to do here. You just rotate it, line that column up there, and then you can tab into edit mode. Just select these verts. I just go into wireframe, so Z wireframe, just so I can select them all. You can do the same thing with the X-ray. This is just how I prefer to work sometimes. And all of these bottom ones, I'm just going to scale them a little bit. And then R to rotate them ever so slightly, rotate them. And then E to extrude it down, and then S to scale. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something like that. Then in your front view, while you still have this active, you can go S, X, and scale it on the X. And then maybe G, Z, move it up a bit. Really don't have to overdo it. We're keeping it very, very simple here. And then we can, in our right orthographic view, just select some of these back verts, enable proportional editing, and make sure you enable the X mirror here, so it kind of mirrors on both sides. Just so we don't mess up the symmetry. And we're going to go G, and we're going to just move it back like that, just a little bit. And then let's turn off proportional editing, and let's turn off the mirror. Okay, now we have that. And let's tab back out, and there we have it. We just have 4 primitive shapes here. Some of them we've just very roughly edited. Okay, so now we're done with our primitive shapes. We're simply going to come over here to our annotation tool. And if you hold in Control, you can kind of just paint this away. I'm just going to get this all out of the way. We don't need that anymore. Okay, these are just our rough lines. Holding in Control with the annotation tool and just getting rid of those marks that I drew that came with the starter file. Let's go back to our move tool here. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to press A to select all of these objects, and then holding in Shift, let's just select just the neck bit, the bottom bit there, okay? So that's the last active element here. And let's just go Control J or Command J, and we've now joined all of this together. And why are we joining it together? Because we're going to go over to our modifier, add modifier, and at this point we're going to use this really cool thing called remesh. Click on that, and now it's just going to fuse everything together for us. We're going to come here to the voxel size, and the smaller we make this value, the smaller these little volumetrically generated voxels are going to be here. I'm not going to really get into voxels, but let's just make this 0.05. So it's half that size. I might even go 0.03 actually, so 0.03. Okay, that's okay. And then we're going to come here to the dropdown and we're going to apply it. Okay, so now that we have this shape applied, we have this one solid mesh. Blender comes with a nice little workspace already in the package. It's called the sculpting. Where is it? Right over here. Almost clicked it on scripting. That would not have been the subject. So click on the sculpting mode when you have selected the head model. And in the sculpting workspace here, you can see there's a few handy tools here. It's at the top here. You can see we have the active tools workspace. And don't worry about all of this different stuff. Really, we're going to be keeping this so simple. We're going to be using a handful of brushes and just working with the little slider bars up here, really, most of the time. The one thing though, at the moment, and I'll quickly explain this to those who might not understand, we have this thing down here called dynamic topology. So under here, active tool and workspace settings, go down to dynamic topology. If we didn't tick this, what would happen is, if we were to sculpt this, it would just be moving around all of the topology that already exists. But if we enable dynamic topology, it'll add in new topology. Otherwise the faces will start to get really stretched out. We won't have any new points or vertices. So we have to make sure we enable dynamic topology. Okay, now one thing as well, we could come here and sculpt, but we don't want to end up sculpting just on one side and then have to come over here again, when we can just simply come and symmetrize. Now, don't go ahead and sculpt it yet, because at the moment it's nice and symmetrized already. But if you come here to the symmetry, you can enable it on the X. Now you can actually see here, see this little gizmo up here? This is the X axis going along like this. So if we want to mirror on the Y, we would enable Y. If we wanted to go up and down on the Z axis, we would do the Z. So X is Y, we're doing that. So now if I were to come here and sculpt on one side, you can see it automatically happens on the other side. Okay, so keep that in mind, dynamic topology and the X. Now also, here is another thing. At the moment, the detail size lets us know how big to make the little individual faces when we're doing this. See the little triangles that it's forming, the topology. But the problem is, if we go in closer, which is not really a problem, it becomes even smaller. See how these triangles, the mesh is becoming smaller and smaller. If I zoom in more and do a little stroke, you can see it becomes even smaller, because we have over here, under the refine method, we have, under the detailing, we have relative detail. That just means the closer in we are, the finer the detail, the further back, the rougher the detail. If I go really back, you can see it's really big. So this is actually okay to get started with. Some people, if you're a beginner, can find it a bit hard, because you're gonna make the mesh really dense when you're in close, or really big when you're far away. But we'll try and kind of just stay close to our mesh so that the relative detail here doesn't matter. So just leave it at 12 and leave the relative detail as it is, okay? I'm just gonna undo this, because that was just an example. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we have a whole bunch of brushes here. The main brush we're gonna be using is the clay strips brush. This is a really nice brush because you can just lay down strips of clay. It's super satisfying. And if you were to actually hold in control, now this is one of the most important shortcut keys you need to keep in mind when we're working here. If you hold in control or command, you can inverse the brush. So it does a negative, see? So if I just go like this, it's positive. If I hold in control or command, it's negative. Okay, so keep that in mind, write it down. And one thing you want to do as well, there is this smooth brush, which we're going to be using a lot. If you actually go over here, it's called a smooth brush, but we don't want to keep going in between brushes the whole time. So what you can do is a handy shortcut. Doesn't matter what brush you're working on. If you hold in shift, your brush automatically becomes a smooth brush. So we can be sculpting here and then just hold in shift and automatically it becomes a smooth brush. So if you can keep those things in mind, it is really going to help you. The only thing besides that I just showed you we're going to really be doing is sliding the strength here and the radius. And by the way, there are shortcuts. The radius is just F. If you want to control the radius of your brush, that's the shortcut for this up here. And Shift F is the strength, okay? But if you're not comfortable with that, just come up here and do that. So let's start. And by the way, I am using a mouse for this. But let's start by rounding out this face a little bit. So we're going to hold in Shift, and let's come with the strength at about 0.5. And we're going to hold in Shift, and we're just going to smooth out the corners here like this, okay? Just flatten it over here a little bit where it's a bit too boxy, like that. So I'm just holding in Shift, just going up and down here. You can see it's very simple. And then just smoothing it out in the corners a little bit and smoothing it here, just to round this out a little bit more. We do not want to do any detailing at the moment. We're just softening the shape. Let's come up here to the nose, holding in Shift. Let's smooth this bridge over here, and then come over here and smooth it down like that, okay? You can see already looking pretty cool. How about that, huh? And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and get we still have our clay strips brush, and with a strength at about the halfway as it is, we're going to come here and we're going to hold in control, and we're going to kind of just make a bit of an oval pattern here, just eating away at some of the clay over here. Okay, that's where the eyes are going to be. So just about that much. And then we're going to hold in Shift and just do a light smooth pass, just going over just a little bit. I'm just clicking here while I'm holding in Shift and just smoothing it out a bit. And already you can see we're using very simple strokes here, very simple brushes and methods, and we're already starting to get that human look. Now at the moment, it's still sitting a little bit low here. So let's hold in control. Let's just eat away a little bit more over here at the top. Just get rid of some of that clay, bring it in just a little bit more. Okay, that's a bit better. And the cheekbone should be a little bit more back. So let's just hold in control and let's just get rid of a little bit of the clay over here. And I'm calling it clay. I know it's not really clay, but you get the idea. So just holding in control, just getting rid of that with the clay strips brush. Holding in shift, just doing a few smooth passes. And let's come about here at the corner of the head here. And let's just make a little bit of an L. So start here with the clay strips and then come down like that. Just making an L shape. And then come over here, hold in control and just paint a little bit of a triangle here just to get rid of some of that clay. Holding in shift, just go over it like that. Smooth it here, holding in shift, smooth it here, here and here. And we're just trying to make, this is going to be where the corner of the jaw is going to be. At the moment it's looking a little bit rounded. So let's come over here with the clay strips brush and let's square it up a little bit, add a little bit more clay, all the way down to the jaw here. Holding in shift, let's smooth it out again. So now you can see it's a little bit more defined. Just adding strips of clay, smoothing it out, very simple. And that's starting to look about where we want because we are going for a male shape here. And at the moment we also want some eyebrow ridges. So let's just come here, lay down some nice simple strips of clay, starting at about here and then coming down here to the side. And then let's attach this all the way down to where the square of the jaw is over here. Just coming down a little bit of a clay strip there and then holding in shift, let's just do a quick smooth pass, smooth it out here and a little bit there. And you can see just by adding that, it already looks a lot better. And let's come in here, holding in shift, let's smooth that out a little bit. And let's just start adding a little bit here because we've hollowed it out too much over here. We do need to add a little bit of cheek here. So let's just come, just do about 2 strips of clay, just like that. You can see where we're going with this, maybe 1 or 2 more. Okay, that's looking a lot better. Then hold in shift and just lightly smooth it out here. And this is kind of going to be where our eye is going to be eventually. So you can kind of see we're really not trying to add details here. We're keeping it very simple, just adding light strips, smoothing it out. And you can already see how the shape is starting to form here. Let's just leave it at that for now. We'll add in the eyes eventually, but we're just roughing out the shape. Let's do something with the nose here for a minute. So a simple thing to turn this into a nose is to kind of come here to the tip. And then let's increase the strength for the brush here because we want to add quite a bit. So we're going to start here at the tip and we're going to drag it in towards the inside of the face here at about an angle like that, as you can see. And then we're going to start down here and let's just go 1, 2, 3 strips of clay. In fact, let's just make a little ball like that. Just, yeah, like that. Just click with the brush and add some material. Now that's way too much. Let's just hold in shift and just simply smooth it out a bit like that. And already you can see we have the shape of the nose here. Now, what I like to do, instead of messing around too much with the clay strips, once we've added those little nodes at the side, what we can do is come here to this brush here called the grab brush. And then we can simply go into our front orthographic view. And I really like this. At this point, we can press F to grow the brush size a little bit. And let's come here and let's just shape this nose by dragging this material and then dragging it in here a little bit. And here's really where you can now take this rough shape of the nose and you can really start to shape the overall idea of your nose. Look at some references at this point. Look at your character sheet, whatever you're working on. But that's just a really simple way to get started with a nose. Now you can see here, we might want to just smooth it a little bit over here. So holding in shift, just smooth it. We don't want it coming out too much, but you get how simple a nose can actually be. And let's get our clay strips. And one little thing we can do to make this look really cool is kind of just make a ball of clay here at the front. Holding in shift, just smooth it back like that. And the more you do that, the pointier the nose will be. So you can smooth it out quite a bit, but we just want a little bit of meat over there. And that kind of blends that together a lot better. You can see here, we automatically have kind of like this little bit of skin coming down, which is what we see on a real nose anyway. All we now have to do is come in here and hold in control to get the inverse of our brush and just roll it around a few times to make the holes, and then hold in shift and just smooth like that and smooth over here with the smooth brush. And look at that. We're using really simple methods here and we're already getting really great results. We really don't want to get bogged down with the details. Okay, let's come up here. Let's add a strip just to add a bit more meat to the nose. Hold in shift, smooth it back a little bit. Okay, that looks a lot better. So we now have the overall shape of the head. We have the nose starting out here, but let's look at the mouth area here as well, because that needs to have something done here. It's looking very flat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold in shift and just smooth this squareness out a little bit more like that. Now we have a nice area to start working. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get this brush here called the crease brush. And I press F just to grow it smaller a little bit. And I'm going to come down, not quite halfway between the chin and the nose, but just a little bit up, about here. And I'm just going to drag like this over to the side to about here, just to add a crease. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my grab brush and I'm going to press F to grow it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it not in the middle, but a little bit off, and I'm going to drag it up to kind of make a bit of an M shape, like that. See what we're doing here? And that's going to kind of already give us a good place to start making the top lip and the bottom lip. I'm going to come here and drag this bottom bit out a bit, flatten it out. And it's still not looking like a mouth, but now it gives us a good place to start. And we're going to come here and get our clay strips brush now. F to grow it a bit smaller. And let's zoom in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to come here and kind of draw an M. So it's making a strip of clay and then a strip of clay coming down like that. Very simple. And let's do it again. Another little strip here. And let's add a little bit more meat here at the top as well, but not too much. And then at the bottom here, let's make just a little rounded kind of egg shape here, like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to hold in Shift and just lightly click and smooth it out. And at the top here, but not too much at the bottom, just come here and smooth it like that. Cool, and you can already see we're getting these lips forming here. It's not quite right yet, but it is a good start. We're now going to come in here at the bottom, not quite forward, but a little bit up at an angle. And now holding in Shift, we're just going to lightly smooth like that to flatten the lips out as well. Okay, and then let's get our grab brush. And now we're just going to shape our mouth a little bit. So let's just bring these lips down a little bit so they meet. And then drag the skin down here. Just kind of bringing the lips together, bringing it up here. And look at some reference images of lips. But you get the idea of what we're doing here. We're just trying to keep it really, really simple. It's just kind of like this top M shape and then this bottom bit. It's all that it really is to the mouth. And then kind of like this groove in here. You can still smooth it out at any time by holding in Shift. But already just like that, we have a nice simple mouth forming. And as you can see, we're not really getting into any sort of details, just really simple shapes starting to form here. We're just establishing the overall idea before we get into any sort of refining. But already, if you've made it this far, you're doing really well. So what I'm going to do now is get the clay strips brush. I'm going to hold in Shift, and I'm just going to smooth out around here a little bit. Just get rid of all of this sort of boxy look here, the little squares. That's just from the UV sphere that we used as a primitive, and the remeshing algorithm kind of made it look like that. But we're just smoothing it out a bit. And let's just come here to the neck. And this is one of the parts I really love. Look how quickly we're going to make this look like a neck. We're going to come in here, press F to shrink our brush. And with our clay strips brush, let's just add a nice strip of clay going around here like that. Hold in Shift to smooth it over here and over here a bit. And then we're going to start at about this point here, not too much out, but about here at the bottom of the neck. And we're just going to get a clay strip and bring it all the way down, almost like a V, like that. Let's do that again, like that. And then holding in Control, let's get rid of a little bit of clay here. Holding in Shift, just smooth it here, and holding in Shift, smooth it here. And then smooth under the neck a little bit. Maybe let's smooth the chin just a bit. And look at that. Already starting to look more like a neck. Let's come over here, add a strip of clay down here just to make it look a little bit more, that has a bit more volume at the base. Just like that, just going all the way around, smoothing it out where I need to. There we go, with that smooth. And let's come to the back here, and let's just make a strip running down like this. And then let's just smooth everything out by holding in Shift, smooth it out here to the side. And wow, look at that. We're already seeing a neck forming here. Just come here at the back, maybe hold in Control and just get rid of some of this clay here. It's a bit of a divot here at the back of the neck, and then hold in Shift and just smooth it out. So one thing here is that the jaw is a little bit too forward, and that jawline being a bit more forward makes it look like there's kind of something in his mouth. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our grab brush, okay? And we're simply just going to correct this by going to our right orthographic view, pressing F to grow the brush. And let's just grab this jaw and let's just move it back and down a bit. Okay, so just moving it back, just grabbing it like this and in a little bit, just to have a bit more of a square. So see here where we have the bottom of the skull here and where the neck starts, that's kind of like the corner of the head here. So we just want to tuck it all up into that point there. And that wasn't a really hard edit at all. That's pretty simple. And then I'll just tuck that chin a little bit. Let's do a little bit of a chin tuck there. And let's just quickly come to the front view and let's just bring it in a little bit. It's a bit too much out. So that was really not a difficult edit. All we did is just pulled it back a little bit and pulled it in a bit, and that worked just fine. And also another thing is, earlier we made those kind of little muscles coming down here, but because the jaw wasn't in the right place, we put it forward a little bit too much, but that's not a big deal. We're just simply gonna grab our clay strips brush. Let's just press F to shrink it, and let's really bring up that strength. And now that we have the corner here, what we're gonna do, the ear will eventually be here, but behind the ear here at the top of the skull is a big muscle that runs down all the way to here. I actually know what it's called, I've forgotten, but it starts here, and you're just gonna click and drag, and you're gonna come all the way down and bring it down like this. See that? Now that looks quite chunky, but all you're gonna do, hold in shift and just smooth out the edge, and hold in shift, come up and smooth out that edge. And look at that. That's already looking a lot better. And if it's too chunky, just simply get that trusty grab brush and just bring it in just a little bit like that. Just a little bit will do. But now that looks a lot better, and that's actually a bit more biologically accurate as well. You can hold in shift and smooth it down if you need to, if it's too much for you. But now you can see that's kind of like the shape of the neck. The neck isn't just a round cylinder. It's got this kind of like, it doesn't round out as much at the front here especially. It becomes a bit more squared because of those muscles wrapping around like that. And we can also come here at the bottom, just hold in shift and just lightly smooth out all this funky stuff down there. Not really a big deal, but you get the idea. So that's looking a lot better. Maybe tuck it in here just a bit. Also, just another quick thing is we can take the shoulders here and take the grab brush and just pull them back a little bit like this. So it's just leaning in a bit more forward. Once again, a very minor edit, but it just makes things look a little bit better. Just tuck that back. And I'm just gonna quickly get my clay strips brush, and I'm just gonna add a little bit more flesh over here, just kind of like that. And just holding in shift just to smooth it out. That just makes a bit more of that sort of Adam's apple kind of look, and I think that looks a lot better. This is going to be more defined or less defined on different people, so just keep that in mind. But that really just helps those two, between those two muscles coming down, it really just makes this shape look quite lovely. You can see we kind of have this V over here, which is what we want. All very simple stuff. So I think at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to import our ears. So just to recap, in the description below, you will find a link to my Gumroad page where for free you can download the Gumroad file. There's actually two blend files in there. One of them is an ear. So you're just going to go to File, you're going to go to Append, and then you're going to find wherever you would have saved that to. So for me, I know where I put that. I'm just going to quickly grab it. So yeah, it's called the Sculpt starter file. In there is the blend file for the ear. You're just going to click on that blend file. Go to object and then click on it just says cube, but yeah, you get the idea. So there it is, the ear. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into our layout and get the grab tool here, the move tool. Let's select that ear and let's go S to scale that down like so, about this much. And let's go G to move it. Let's move it to the left side of the character. So that might be your right side, but from the perspective of the character, that's its left. And let's take it and move it down till the top of the ear is pretty much almost where the eye ridge is over here, something like that. And then we're going to go R, and we're going to just slightly rotate it like that, but not too much, just about there. Okay. And the scale can be a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, but you don't want to go too big, you don't want to go too small, but get it right in there like that. And it might look okay at the front, but we need to go to the right orthographic view. Now we need to go G, Y, and move it forward to about here, where the corner of the head is. See how the jaw comes up here and it's the bottom of the skull? Just about there. In fact, I'll move mine just back a bit. Just about there. It's a little bit more in the corner. So that seems about right. And what we're going to do now is you can see that there is some of the mesh is sticking free. If that's the case, if you just select your model, go into the sculpting mode, make sure dynamic topology is still enabled. And let's just hold in shift and use the smooth brush and just smooth that out a bit just to get rid of it. Just like that. Okay. Just holding in shift, smoothing that out. Just like that. And maybe just add a little bit more clay just around here like that, if it's needed. And then just smooth it out, holding in shift. Okay, just like that. Get it roughly in place. maybe a little bit more here. You can refine these shapes a little bit later, but if you have to add a bit more volume to the back of the head, sometimes you just have to do that. And once again, just look at some reference images as you're working on that, but roughly get that in place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back into object mode. We're going to select that ear, holding and shift select the character head, and then go Control J or Command J, and now they're joined together. But let's quickly go to our modifiers and let's remesh this. And that'll add it all together. Let's make this 0.02. Okay, that's okay for now. And let's come to the drop down and let's apply that. Now you can see it's only on one side. Let's just go back into our sculpting. Actually, we are already in the sculpting workspace, but let's just go back up here because I went into object mode. Let's just go into sculpt mode, go to our active tools and workspace, and you can see dynamic topology is disabled. Make sure to enable that again. And you can see here we still have the symmetry on the X, but we need to mirror it again. So we're going to click here on symmetrize. And now it's symmetrized it, like so. And because we have X mirrored on, we can now just go over here. And if we go shift and then just smooth that out, blend it in, you can see it happens on the other side. So while we're holding in shift, let's just come around here like this. And let's just blend that in. And this is a really simple method. So I am actually going to put a link in the description below to my video where I show you guys step by step how to sculpt an ear. But you guys get the idea here, right? Now we have that ear in place, and you can get your grab brush at this point, grow it a little bit by pressing F, and then you can come in here and you can make any necessary adjustments. The rough shape of the ear is already in place, but you can just come here and manipulate it to whatever model sheet you're working on, or whatever character reference you're looking at, or whatever anatomy pages, whatever you're working with. You can come here and now you have a nice base that you're working with. And yeah, that is the ears pretty much now. I might just drag that up a bit. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but you can see the characters really come together. But what we need to do, actually I might just bring that in a little bit and bring that out. Okay, like that. But what we need to do now is bring in some eyeballs. Let's go into our layout workspace. Let's go Shift A and let's add in a UV sphere. S to scale it down, and then G to move it up. Once again, let's go to the left side of the character. And with the scale here, let's just actually press N, and let's go to our items. And with the scale here, I'm just making it, yeah, let's just make it 0.17, roughly there. Okay, so it's 0.174 in this case, but more or less that size. And then go to your right view by pressing 3 on the number pad, and then go G, Y, and move it forward like so. And you want to just about here where it's not going, there needs to be a little bit of a bridge here, like a little bit of a gap. You don't want it too back either though, so just about here should be fine. And in front, this is what we have. But we're also going to go and give it a mirror modifier. Click on the little eyedropper and then select the character mesh, and now it's mirrored. We're going to go right click and go shade smooth, and now we have some eyes in place. Let's select the character again. Let's go into our sculpting workspace. We want to make sure dynamic topology is still enabled, which it is. And now with our grab brush, we're going to come here and we're just going to tuck the eye, the bridge of the eye here up a little bit like that. Just grabbing it inside here, tucking it all up. And by the way, we're not going to be affecting the eye, which is what we want. We don't want to be affecting that ball. We just want it to be sitting there. So we're going to kind of make a little bit of an arch coming over here by bringing these bits down. Just little tugs like that. And pushing this mesh up here like that. You can see we have that sort of ridge there. And then we're going to come here and do the same here. Very, very simple, just like that. Now that we have that in place, we're going to come and get our clay strips brush. We're going to go F to shrink it. And let's bring that strength down a little bit. So maybe even a bit smaller. So F, I'm pressing here just to make it smaller. And we're going to come and we're going to add in a strip of clay here just to emphasize this bridge over here above the eye a little bit more. So something like that. And then we're going to come in here, we're going to fill in this volume over here a little bit more. Just kind of like this tissue you get under here, but not too much. Just you need a little bit of volume here because it's a bit flat at the moment. Let's just smooth that out with shift. Maybe not too much, just do light little presses like that. There we go. And then we're going to also just smooth this out just a tiny little bit up here, more at the top. And you can see that sort of socket of the eye is really starting to take shape. Just with basic little strokes like this, adding some clay here and having this bridge over here kind of coming up at a 45 angle. But where the real magic's going to happen now is if we shrink our brush even more and we come in here and we're going to kind of be at the front, but we're going to look down at a little bit of an angle. And starting over here in the corner of the eye, we're going to kind of just add some strips of clay going like this. In fact, we might want to increase the strength for this one here. So we're going to go back and forth like this, just making the eyelid. See, like that? Just a few passes. Maybe build it up a little bit more here on the side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our front orthographic view. We're going to get our grab brush. And now we're going to take that eyelid that we just made. And we're going to come here at the front view. We're going to move around and we're just going to drag that up like so till we make that eyelid. There we go. You can also hold in shift and just come here on the side and just smooth that out a little bit like that. And then you can once again keep just dragging at it. But we're taking this eyelid and we're moving it up. And this point, it's important to look at some references. You should always be looking at some references of some eyes. And I've actually got a model sheet open here, or a reference sheet of just some images that I compiled, but I can't really put them on the screen for copyright purposes. But you guys can easily go into Google. You can even ask an AI to make you a face for free. So it's a lot of really cool stuff you guys can do to get resources. Just look at some reference images of some eyes. And we're going to kind of make a bit more almondy over here. So we want a bit more of an almond shape. So we're going to grow the brush and we're going to drag this corner up here down a little bit. And then you kind of see where we're going here. We want a bit of an almond shape. Dragging that forward. Okay, and that's more of what we're looking for with the shape. Okay, now that we have that done, let's get that clay strips brush again. Let's shrink it down. And let's come here to the detail and let's make it 8 pixels. And now we're going to come in here at the bottom, so looking up. And we have a smaller brush. We're going to start here in the corner of the eye. And we're going to go around like that, and we're going to make the top eyelid. See what we're doing? Just like that. And then holding in shift, you can just smooth it out. And then do another pass. We're just building up these strips of clay around here that are making up the eyelid. And then in your front view, you can simply grab your brush and hold in shift and just simply do some light smooth passes. And just like that, you can see we already have the eyelid of our character starting to form. And over here, we kind of want this little bit of fatty tissue here. It's kind of like a little bit of a bulbous thing going on here. That's actually something you see a lot on people, especially as they get a bit older, and it's a bit more emphasized on males as well. So I'm going to kind of not define the lid too much over here. But what I will do is I'll get the grab brush again, and I'll just tuck this a little bit more and bring that up. And I'm always just using my smooth brush as well as I'm working, just to smooth things out lightly. But already you can see we're really getting this eye shape forming here very, very quickly. Okay, let's see what that looks like from the side. From the side, it looks okay. We don't want this too forward or too back. You just want to kind of have a little bit of a V going on here, but you want this one angle at the top to be a bit longer, going out a bit further to about here. And this one should look a little bit shorter like that. Sort of this kind of sleuth like that is what you're going for. And then you can see the eyelid kind of folds over here like that to the side of the face. Let's get our clay strips brush. And I'm going to make it small. I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to define this edge a little bit more on here for the eyelid at the bottom. And then light little smoothing passes. Okay, so there we have it. The face is really almost pretty much done. At this point, it's just going to be a matter of polishing things up again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a few things that we can do to make it look a little bit smoother, a little bit nicer. And then we'll start wrapping this sculpt up. But if you've made it here so far, you're doing really well. So just keep at it. Doesn't matter if yours looks exactly like mine, but we're just trying to learn the basics of sculpting a face over here. So you can see here we have a few little speckles and areas where it's not quite smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring down the strength on our brush quite a bit, and we're going to hold in shift And we're just going to smooth things out a little bit. Okay, we don't want to go too crazy. And in areas where the topology looks kind of really a bit jaggedy, we can, in those areas, grab certain tools to refine them a bit. So in the lips here, for example, we can get a specific brush here called a crease brush. And if we click on a crease brush, we can actually zoom in here in the lips, come at the front, and let's just click here and drag, and we're going to do a few passes, and we're going to make the brush a little bit smaller each time, and just to make that even finer and finer, I'm zooming in here, and it's just creasing it in there and just bringing those two lips together. It just makes it look a lot nicer. We can also get our clay strips brush, and we can just kind of come here and just slightly emphasize the lips a little bit more, like that. I'm just simply keeping in mind this M shape that we have going on here, and I'm trying not to destroy it. Just light little passes, adding volume where we need to. And once again, references are going to be your best friend. I know I keep saying that, but you really need to look at some references. One little thing, if you want to add some details to the lips, you can get the crease brush. You can start here where the M is. So look at this kind of like an M. It goes up like that and comes down. And if you hold in Control, you can do the inverse of the brush and then bring it down like this. Okay. Now the downside of that is it really makes it too sharp, but if you now hold in Shift and you kind of smooth just along here like that, and then come here and smooth just along there, what you're going to do is you're really going to sharpen up that lip there. When in this case it's a way too much. What we want to do is just soften it a little bit here on the ends, and how much you do this by is completely up to you, but towards the edges and where the tops come together, we just want to soften them a bit just so it doesn't look too sharp, and that's looking a lot better. We can also do the same thing with that crease brush. Holding in Control, we can just make a crease, make the brush a bit smaller, a crease coming in here. Holding in Shift, just smooth it out there. And then get the clay strips, and then holding Control and do an inverted slit here. So like holding in Control does the inverse. And then holding in Shift, let's just smooth that out a little bit. And then smooth up here to the nose. And you can see that's a lot more emphasized. Let's just soften it a little bit here, so it's not too extreme. And let's get that crease brush again, and let's just come here, zooming in nice and close, and let's just do a few creases around there like that. And then holding in Shift just to smooth that out. On top of that, you could also get your grab brush, go to your front view, and you can just simply just tuck this in a little bit, this mesh around here. And that's a nice little trick just to emphasize the details a little bit more. And then smooth it where you need to. And you can see these are really, really simple brushes. Despite having all of these different brushes here, we've only really used a small handful, and already we are getting some really nice results. And so at this point, it's just a matter of going around, holding in Shift, smoothing it out, and where I feel that volume is needed, I will just get my trusty old clay strips brush, decrease it, and at this point we really want to bring that strength down because we're only refining details a little bit. And I'll emphasize where I want to, smooth it out. I'll get the crease brush every now and then and just emphasize areas where there's already an existing crease. But keep in mind, we don't want to go too crazy with this. But you guys get the idea here. So what I'm going to do now at this point is call this tutorial finished. At this point, it really just is a matter of going around the character and smoothing out the things. I'm going to actually go ahead and just do that now because it's only a few more little things that need to be smoothed out. And then I'll show you guys what the final result looks like. But this is pretty much it. I personally don't like to smooth out my sculpts too much because I feel like then it doesn't look like a sculpt anymore. I kind of like that bit of like rough brush look. Like you can see that that was actually done by a clay strips brush. And that's just my personal preference. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I'm going to quickly just polish this off and I'll show you guys what it looks like. And here you can see I have finished detailing it up where I want to. I've added a few more creases here and there just to sharpen things up, but I haven't done a whole lot. Like you can see here, I really like to leave it a little bit, like I like to smooth areas out that don't look good, but I like to leave kind of like a bit of like a clay kind of blobby look. To me personally, I really like that, even though I do sometimes when I'm sculpting for clients, I'll like polish things out really heavily, but I really kind of like this look where you can see it's been sculpted by hand. and it's not just like a retopologized scan or something. It's just something that I really like when it comes to sculpting personally. But at this point, I'm definitely going to call this done. I really have enjoyed making this tutorial for you guys, and I will be putting this sculpt that I've made on my Patreon if you guys want to check that out in the description below. And yeah, definitely make something, and if you have good results, make sure to join the Discord server below and share it with the community. Just go ahead, share it, show people your result, and don't worry about what it looks like. I mean, try your best and just keep working at it till you feel like what you're making really represents something more accurate and it looks like what you kind of had in mind. So just keep practicing. Sculpting is definitely one of those things, the more you do it, the more it'll kind of just sink in. So thank you for watching.